The stars around Earth's solar system suddenly changed. Where empty space had been moments before, 3 large ships appeared. They were not like anything humans had ever built. The ships were smooth and curved, with no sharp edges. Their hulls glowed with soft blue and green lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Inside the lead ship, Ambassador HFY stood looking out at the small yellow star ahead. He was tall and thin, with skin that looked like crystal. His forearms moved gracefully as he studied the readings on his screen. The ambassador had done this many times before. He had visited over 200 different worlds and met hundreds of alien species. Each time it went the same way. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started ringing. He nearly dropped his cup as he ran to the control panel. Jake had been watching the stars for 20 years from the Earth Defense Station. He had seen meteors, satellites, and space junk, but he had never seen anything like this. The 3 objects on his screen were massive. They were clearly artificial, clearly intelligent, and clearly not human. Jake's hands shook as he reached for the red emergency button. The moment he pressed it, every important person on Earth would know that humanity was no longer alone. In Washington, President Lisa Carter was in a morning meeting when her assistant burst through the door. The woman's face was white with shock. She whispered something in the president's ear that made Lisa stand up so fast her chair fell over. Within 5 minutes, every world leader was on a secure video call. The alien ships moved slowly toward Earth. They did not try to hide. They did not attack. They simply traveled at a steady pace, sending out radio signals on multiple frequencies. The signals were complex but clearly meant as a greeting. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been studying space signals for most of her career. She had always wondered what she would do if she found proof of alien life. Now she knew. She was terrified and excited at the same time. Elena gathered her best scientists and linguists. They had maybe hours to figure out what the aliens were trying to say. The messages were surprisingly easy to understand. The aliens used mathematics and pictures to communicate basic ideas. They showed star maps, simple equations, and images of different alien species. The message was clear. They were not the only intelligent life in the galaxy. Far from it. Ambassador HFY was pleased with how quickly the humans responded to their signals. Most primitive species took days or even weeks to send a reply, but Earth sent back mathematical answers within hours. It showed they were at least smart enough to understand basic concepts. The ambassador's military advisor, a shorter alien with armor-like skin, was less impressed. "They are just another young species," he said. "They have barely left their home planet. This will be simple." But HFY noticed something interesting in the human responses. There was a complexity to their mathematics that seemed advanced for such a young civilization. Their radio technology was also more sophisticated than expected. Still, their ships were primitive chemical rockets. Their weapons were basic nuclear devices. They posed no threat to the Galactic Collective. Admiral Kate Sullivan had been preparing for this day for 30 years. As a young officer, she had been read into Project Sentinel, the most classified program in human history. The project existed for one reason: to prepare for the day aliens came to Earth. Kate looked at the reports coming in from around the world. The alien ships were impressive, but they were also familiar. Humans had been studying alien technology for longer than most people knew. The ships matched designs that had been predicted decades ago. The aliens sent another message. This time, it included images of a great galactic government. Dozens of alien species worked together under one rule. The message was both an invitation and a warning. Join willingly, or be forced to join later. President Carter read the translated message 3 times. The words were polite, but the meaning was clear. Humanity had a choice, but it was not really a choice at all. Submit or be conquered. It was the classic offer of every bully in history, just on a galactic scale. Dr. Rodriguez worked through the night with her team. The more they learned about the alien messages, the more worried they became. The Galactic Collective claimed to represent 47 different species. They had rules, laws, and military forces that spanned multiple star systems. Earth was like a small village suddenly discovered by a vast empire. But Elena also noticed gaps in the alien knowledge. Their messages asked basic questions about human technology and capabilities. They seemed to assume Earth was exactly what it appeared to be, a single planet with a young, weak civilization. Jake Morrison watched his screens as the alien ships came closer to Earth. Military ships from every nation were moving into position, but Jake knew they were useless. If these aliens wanted to destroy Earth, there was nothing humanity could do to stop them. The alien ships were larger and more advanced than anything humans had ever built. The alien fleet stopped just outside the moon's orbit. They sent one final message. Ambassador HFY would come to Earth in 3 days. He would meet with human leaders to discuss Earth's integration into the Galactic Collective. The message was formal and polite, but it was not a request. Admiral Sullivan smiled as she read the alien message. For 30 years, she had wondered if humanity's preparations would ever be needed. Now she knew. She picked up a secure phone and spoke 4 words that activated protocols hidden across the globe. Project Sentinel is active. Around the world, secret facilities began powering up systems that had been waiting in darkness for decades. Deep, underground, massive machines started their long startup sequences. In hidden ocean bases, crews began final preparations for equipment that officially did not exist. President Carter called an emergency session of the United Nations. Every world leader would need to know what was coming. But more importantly, they would need to know what humanity was really capable of. The time for secrets was almost over. As the alien ships waited in space, confident in their superiority, humanity prepared to show the galaxy that appearances could be very deceiving. 3 days passed quickly on Earth. The whole planet watched the news as governments prepared for the most important meeting in human history. Every major city had protests, celebrations, and prayer gatherings. Some people were excited to meet aliens. Others were terrified of what might happen. Ambassador HFY selected his smallest ship for the journey to Earth's surface. He did not want to frighten the humans too much. The ship was only 300 meters long, which was tiny by Galactic Collective standards. To humans, it was still larger than most buildings. The alien ship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. Military jets from 6 different countries escorted it to the landing site in Nevada. The desert location had been chosen carefully. It was far from major cities, but close enough to important government facilities. Secretary of State Ryan Peters stood at the edge of the landing zone, watching the alien ship settle onto the prepared platform. Ryan had been a diplomat for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Behind him stood General Chris Williams and Dr. Amy Clark, Earth's top science advisor. They represented humanity's military and scientific leadership. The ship's landing legs extended and locked into place with mechanical precision. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then a section of the hull became transparent, revealing the aliens inside. They were tall and graceful, moving with fluid motions that seemed almost like dancing. A ramp extended from the ship to the ground. Ambassador HFY was the first to emerge, followed by 2 other aliens. The ambassador was impressive, standing nearly 8 feet tall with crystalline skin that reflected the desert sunlight. His 4 arms moved independently as he walked, and his large eyes seemed to take in everything at once. The second alien was shorter and covered in what looked like natural armor. This was Jexnal, the military advisor. His role was mostly ceremonial on missions like this. Most primitive species offered no military threat, so his presence was just a formality. The third alien was Yilmoth, the trade negotiator. Her job was to help new species understand the economic benefits of joining the Galactic Collective. She carried a device that could translate between thousands of languages and display holographic presentations. Ryan Peters stepped forward and spoke, the words that had been practiced hundreds of times. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador HFY. On behalf of all humanity, we greet you in peace and friendship." The ambassador's translation device worked perfectly. He understood every word and responded in clear English. "Thank you, Secretary Peters. We are honored to make contact with your species. The Galactic Collective extends its friendship to all intelligent life." The formal greeting ceremony was brief but important. Cameras from around the world broadcast the historic moment. Children in schools stopped their lessons to watch. Workers in offices gathered around television screens. For the first time in human history, people were seeing real aliens on live television. Dr. Clark led the group to a specially prepared conference room. The facility had been built in just 3 days, but it looked like it had been planned for years. The room had equipment for translation, recording, and communication with world leaders. Ambassador HFY began his presentation the same way he had on 200 other worlds. He showed holographic displays of the Galactic Collective's territory. Thousands of star systems, dozens of species, and peaceful cooperation spanning centuries. It was an impressive sight that usually left primitive species amazed and eager to join. But the humans asked different questions than most species. Dr. Clark wanted to know about the collective's science and technology. General Williams asked about military structures and defense policies. Ryan Peters focused on trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. The questions showed that humans understood complex political and economic concepts. This was unusual for a species that had barely begun space exploration. Most primitive civilizations were overwhelmed by the scope of galactic civilization. Humans seemed to grasp it immediately. Yilmoth activated her presentation device and showed the benefits of membership in the collective. Advanced medical technology that could extend human lifespans. Energy systems that could power entire continents. Transportation networks that could move people between star systems in days rather than centuries. President Carter joined the meeting via secure video link. She listened carefully as the ambassador explained the integration process. New species were given advanced technology and protection in exchange for following collective laws and contributing resources to the common good. It sounds like a generous offer, President Carter said diplomatically. What would happen if a species chose not to join your collective? Ambassador HFY's crystalline features shifted colors slightly. This was a question that rarely came up. Most species were so impressed by the collective's power and technology that they begged to join immediately. The collective has learned that galactic peace requires universal participation, the ambassador explained. Species that remain isolated often develop dangerous technologies or aggressive tendencies. For the safety of all, integration is necessary. General Williams leaned forward in his chair. And if a species refuses integration? Jexnol, the military advisor, spoke for the first time. His voice was deeper and more mechanical than the ambassador's. The collective has substantial military resources to ensure compliance. However, force is rarely necessary. Most species choose cooperation once they understand their situation. The humans exchanged glances that the aliens interpreted as fear and resignation. In reality, the looks conveyed information that had been rehearsed many times. Each person in the room had specific roles to play in gathering intelligence about alien capabilities and intentions. Dr. Clark asked detailed questions about alien technology, carefully probing for weaknesses or limitations. Her questions seemed like scientific curiosity, but they were actually part of a comprehensive assessment of alien capabilities. The meeting continued for 6 hours. The aliens presented their standard integration package, which included immediate gifts of technology and a 30-day period for humanity to make its decision. The timeline was generous by collective standards, but it was designed to prevent primitive species from developing desperate defensive measures. As the day ended, Ambassador HFY felt satisfied with the progress. The humans seemed intelligent and cooperative. They had asked good questions and shown appropriate respect for the collective's power. Their technology was primitive, but showed potential for rapid development under collective guidance. The aliens were escorted to temporary quarters that had been prepared for them. The facility included everything they might need during their stay on Earth. Hidden throughout the building were sensors and recording devices that would monitor everything the aliens did and said. That night, President Carter held an emergency meeting with world leaders. The alien offer was exactly what intelligence agencies had predicted based on decades of studying similar first contact scenarios. The collective's approach was sophisticated, but followed predictable patterns. Admiral Sullivan reviewed the intelligence gathered during the first day of contact. The aliens were confident and powerful, but they had shown several important limitations. Their sensors had not detected Earth's hidden military installations. Their questions revealed gaps in their knowledge about human capabilities. Most importantly, the aliens seemed to assume that Earth was exactly what it appeared to be, a single planet with a young civilization. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this moment for over a century. As the aliens settled in for their first night on Earth, secret facilities around the world continued their preparations. The 30-day timeline, the collective, had provided would be more than enough time for humanity to prepare its response. The aliens thought they were being generous by giving humans time to accept the inevitable. They had no idea they were giving humanity time to prepare the biggest surprise in galactic history. The alien delegation had been on Earth for 2 weeks. Every day they met with human leaders and scientists. Every night, they conducted secret scans of Earth's technology and military capabilities. Ambassador Kethavar was pleased with what they found. Humanity appeared to be exactly what they expected, a young species with primitive technology. The humans used chemical rockets to reach space. Their most powerful weapons were nuclear bombs that could destroy cities, but not continents. Their orbital stations were small and clearly designed for research rather than warfare. Everything confirmed that Earth would be easy to integrate into the collective. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Davis watched the alien scanning attempts from his post deep inside Cheyenne Mountain. The facility was officially a military command center, but it housed much more than that. Ben had clearance to know about Project Sentinel, and he found the alien scans amusing rather than concerning. The Zephyrians had advanced technology, but it was designed to detect familiar patterns. Their sensors looked for nuclear reactors, chemical propulsion systems, and electromagnetic signatures that matched known galactic civilizations. They found exactly what they expected to find, which meant they missed everything that was really important. Ben's screens showed the real defensive systems hidden around Earth. Quantum dampening fields concealed installations that should have been impossible to hide. Energy signatures that would have revealed Earth's true capabilities were masked by technology the aliens had never seen before. The truth was that humanity had been studying alien technology for much longer than the Zephyrians realized. The first breakthrough had come in 1947, when a Zephyrian scout ship had crashed in the desert near Roswell, New Mexico. The wreckage had been recovered and studied in secret for decades. Dr. Nathan Young had spent his entire career reverse engineering alien technology. Now in his 70s, he was one of only a few dozen people who knew the full scope of humanity's hidden capabilities. The crashed scout ship had provided blueprints for energy systems, propulsion methods, and materials that seemed impossible by human standards. But humanity had not simply copied alien technology. Earth's scientists had improved upon it. Dr. Claire Martinez led a team that had solved problems the aliens themselves had never figured out. Human creativity and determination had produced innovations that surpassed anything in the galactic collective. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, the USS Leviathan waited in its hidden dock. The massive ship was humanity's greatest achievement, combining decades of alien technology research with human engineering genius. At 12 kilometers long, it was larger than most cities and more powerful than entire alien fleets. Captain Lisa Chen walked through the ship's corridors, inspecting systems that represented the peak of human achievement. The quantum crystalline armor could withstand direct hits from weapons that could crack planets. The fusion plasma drives could accelerate the ship to speeds that would surprise even the Zephyrians. Chief Engineer Bobby Thompson had worked on the Leviathan project for 15 years. He knew every system, every circuit, and every backup protocol. The ship was not just large, it was smart. Artificial intelligence systems managed millions of components with precision that human crews could never achieve. The Leviathan was not alone. Hidden facilities around Earth housed 11 more Titan-class warships, each one slightly different but equally powerful. The USS Behemoth was concealed beneath the Sahara Desert. The USS Colossus waited under the Antarctic ice. The USS Sovereign was hidden inside a holographic mountain range in the Himalayas. Admiral Sullivan had overseen the construction of all 12 ships. The project had required resources from every nation on Earth and the cooperation of millions of people who would never know what they had helped to build. Components had been manufactured in hundreds of different locations, then assembled in the secret facilities. The ships were just one part of humanity's hidden strength. Orbital weapons platforms disguised as research stations could unleash devastating attacks on targets throughout the solar system. Planetary defense shields could protect Earth from bombardment that could destroy continents. Fighter squadrons equipped with technology beyond alien understanding waited in hidden bases on the Moon and Mars. But the most important advantage humanity possessed was information. For decades, intelligence agencies had been intercepting alien communications and studying their military tactics. Earth knew how the Galactic Collective operated, how they thought, and what their weaknesses were. The Collective relied on technological superiority to maintain control. They had never faced an opponent with technology equal to their own. Their military tactics were designed to overwhelm primitive species, not to fight a peer-level enemy. Most importantly, they had grown overconfident after centuries of easy victories. As the alien delegation continued their assessment of Earth, human intelligence agencies monitored every communication they sent to their fleet. The Zephyrians were reporting exactly what humanity wanted them to report: that Earth was a typical primitive world, with no significant military capability. Dr. Rodriguez continued her role as Earth's lead xenobiologist, but her real job was much more important. She had been studying alien psychology and behavior patterns for years. Her reports helped military planners understand how the Collective would react when humanity revealed its true strength. The aliens believed they understood human nature because they had dealt with hundreds of similar species, but humanity was different in ways they could not imagine. Every other species had developed in isolation until contacted by the Collective. Earth had been preparing for this encounter for over a century. President Carter met with her Security Council every day to review the situation. The alien 30-day deadline was approaching, and humanity would soon have to reveal its decision. The response had been planned years in advance, but the timing had to be perfect. General Williams reviewed the tactical assessments one more time. The alien fleet in orbit around Earth consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and their support vessels. It was an impressive force that could easily destroy any known human military. But the aliens had no idea what they were really facing. The Collective's standard procedure was simple. Give primitive species 30 days to consider membership. If they refused, demonstrate overwhelming force to encourage compliance. If they still refused, use that force to impose collective rule. It had worked perfectly for centuries, but no species had ever possessed the technology to fight back effectively. The Collective had never faced a species that was prepared for their arrival. They had certainly never encountered a species that had spent decades studying their technology and developing countermeasures. As the deadline approached, construction crews around the world put finishing touches on systems that had been under development for decades. Weapon systems powered up for the first time. Ships that had never seen sunlight prepared to emerge from their hidden bases. The Zephyrians continued their diplomatic meetings, confident that humanity would make the sensible choice. They had seen it happen hundreds of times before. Faced with the power of the Collective, primitive species always chose submission over destruction. Ambassador Kethvar prepared his final presentation for the human leaders. He would offer them one last chance to join voluntarily before the Collective's fleet demonstrated its power. The ambassador was certain that humans would make the right choice when they truly understood what they faced. What the ambassador did not know was that humans understood the situation much better than he realized. They knew exactly what they faced, and they had spent decades preparing for this moment. The Collective was about to learn that humanity had never been the primitive species they appeared to be. The time for hiding was almost over. Soon, the galaxy would discover that Earth had been playing a much longer game than anyone had imagined. The 28th day had arrived. Ambassador Kethvar prepared for what he expected would be humanity's surrender ceremony. He had seen this moment hundreds of times on other worlds. Primitive species always made the same choice when faced with the Collective's overwhelming power. President Carter called for a special meeting at the Nevada facility where first contact had occurred. The same conference room that had hosted 2 weeks of diplomatic talks would now witness humanity's final decision. The ambassador was confident he knew what that decision would be. The alien delegation arrived precisely on time. Ambassador HFY wore ceremonial robes that indicated his pleasure with the expected outcome. Military advisor Jexnol carried data tablets containing the standard integration protocols. Trade negotiator Yilmoth brought equipment to begin immediate technology transfers. President Carter sat at the head of the conference table, flanked by Admiral Sullivan and General Williams. Dr. Rodriguez was also present, along with other key figures who had participated in the diplomatic process. The atmosphere in the room was calm and professional. Ambassador HFY, President Carter began, her voice steady and clear. We have spent the past 4 weeks carefully considering your offer to join the Galactic Collective. She paused, looking directly into the alien's compound eyes. After extensive deliberation with leaders from every nation on Earth, we have reached our decision. The ambassador leaned forward slightly, his crystalline features shifting to colors that indicated pleasant anticipation. Behind him, Jexnol and Yilmoth prepared their equipment for the integration ceremony they had performed so many times before. We respectfully decline your invitation, President Carter said simply. The words hung in the air for several seconds. The translator devices worked perfectly, so there was no confusion about what had been said. The aliens simply could not believe what they had heard. In 3 centuries of contact with primitive species, no civilization had ever refused membership in the collective. Ambassador HFY's skin colors shifted through patterns that Dr. Rodriguez recognized as confusion and mild concern. President Carter, the ambassador said carefully, I believe there may be some misunderstanding. Integration into the collective is not optional for species that have achieved space travel. Admiral Sullivan stood up from her chair. Her military bearing and confident expression clearly indicated that she was not intimidated by the alien presence. Ambassador, there is no misunderstanding. We have studied your collective extensively. We understand exactly what you offer and what you demand in return. We choose to remain independent. Jexnol, the military advisor, suddenly became alert. His natural combat instincts were warning him that something was wrong with this situation. Primitive species did not refuse the collective. More importantly, they did not remain calm when doing so. Every species that had ever resisted had shown fear, desperation, or panic. The humans showed none of these emotions. They appeared confident, prepared, and completely unafraid. For a military mind like Jexnol, this suggested only one possibility. They had capabilities that the collective did not know about. General Williams stepped forward, his weathered face showing no emotion despite the historic nature of the moment. Ambassador, I think you are the one who misunderstands our situation. We have been aware of your collective for quite some time. We know your technology, your tactics, and your standard procedures. Dr. Rodriguez activated a small device on the conference table. Immediately, the aliens' personal communicators ceased functioning. Their connection to their ships in orbit was cut off. Emergency beacons that should have activated automatically remained silent. We have been jamming your communications with your fleet for the past week, Dr. Rodriguez explained. Calmly, we thought it was only fair to level the playing field before having this conversation. Ambassador HFY tried to contact his ship and found nothing but silence. The jamming field was sophisticated beyond anything he had expected from a primitive species. The technology was clearly based on principles that the collective had never developed. Yilmoth attempted to activate her emergency protocols and found that none of her equipment responded. The humans had not simply blocked communications, they had neutralized alien technology entirely. This should have been impossible for a species that still used chemical rockets. How long have you known about us? Ambassador HFY asked, his diplomatic composure beginning to crack. Admiral Sullivan smiled for the first time since the meeting began. We recovered one of your scout ships in 1947. We have been studying your technology and preparing for this day ever since. Did you really? Think that a species capable of space travel would not notice alien visitors? The revelation hit the alien delegation like a physical blow. For 80 years, humanity had been analyzing collective technology. They had not been surprised by first contact. They had been expecting it. Everything about Earth's response had been carefully planned and rehearsed. Dr. Rodriguez pulled up holographic displays that showed detailed knowledge of Zephyrian ship designs, weapon systems, and communication protocols. The information was more complete and accurate than what many collective species possessed about their own technology. We know that your fleet consists of 12 heavy cruisers, with a total crew of approximately 40,000, General Williams said. We know their weapon capabilities, their defensive systems, and their tactical doctrines. We have been monitoring your communications since you arrived in our solar system. Ambassador HFY struggled to process what he was hearing. The humans had not simply refused integration. They had been studying the collective for decades. They knew more about Zephyrian capabilities than most collective military officers. Your scans of our technology were very thorough, Admiral Sullivan continued. You found exactly what we wanted you to find: chemical rockets, nuclear weapons, and primitive orbital installations. But you missed the important things because you were looking for technology you recognized. Shexnel's combat instincts were now screaming warnings. The humans were too confident, too prepared, and too knowledgeable. His species had evolved as predators, and he could sense when prey was actually a hidden predator. These humans were dangerous in ways the collective had never encountered. What are you not telling us? Shexnel demanded, his mechanical voice carrying undertones of threat. President Carter looked at Admiral Sullivan, who nodded once. The moment they had been preparing for over 80 years had finally arrived. It was time to show the galaxy what humanity was really capable of. We are telling you that Earth chooses to remain independent, President Carter said. We are also telling you that we have the capability to enforce that choice. Your fleet is powerful by galactic standards, but it is not powerful enough to threaten us. Ambassador HFY's skin shifted to colors that indicated shock and disbelief. That is impossible. You have chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. Our fleet could devastate your entire planet. Admiral Sullivan walked to the window that looked out over the Nevada desert. In the distance, mountains rose against the clear blue sky. Ambassador, those mountains are not real. They are holographic projections concealing one of our military installations. We have been hiding our true capabilities from your sensors since the day you arrived. As if responding to her words, the mountains shimmered and disappeared. In their place stood a massive structure that dwarfed anything the aliens had seen on Earth. Weapon systems that radiated power signatures beyond collective understanding pointed toward the sky. The alien delegation stared in shock as more illusions fell away around the globe. Holographic deserts revealed hidden cities. Artificial islands in the ocean transformed into military bases. What had appeared to be a primitive planet revealed itself as a fortress world armed with technology that surpassed collective capabilities. Impossible, whispered Ambassador HFY. Your technology readings, your energy signatures, everything we detected indicated a primitive civilization. Dr. Rodriguez smiled as she explained. We have had 80 years to perfect our deception. Every signal you detected was artificially generated. Every energy signature was carefully crafted to match your expectations. You saw exactly what we wanted you to see. The aliens finally understood that they had been completely deceived. Earth was not a primitive world waiting for integration. It was an advanced civilization that had been preparing for war with the collective for nearly a century. The humans had not been surprised by contact, they had been ready for it. High above Earth, Fleet Commander Vexthal received the last transmission from Ambassador HFY before the jamming field activated. The message was brief but clear. Humanity had refused integration and was displaying unknown military capabilities. The commander's response was swift and decisive. All ships battle formation, Vexthal ordered. Prepare to demonstrate collective power. These primitives need to understand what they face. The 12 heavy cruisers moved into attack position above Earth. Each ship was over 2 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could crack continents. The collective had used this same demonstration hundreds of times. No primitive species had ever maintained their defiance after seeing the fleet's true power. Admiral Sullivan watched the alien movements from her command center deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain. Screens showed the positions of every enemy ship, their weapon status, and their energy readings. Everything was proceeding exactly as she had planned for decades. "Signal the Leviathan," Admiral Sullivan ordered calmly. "It is time to introduce ourselves properly to our guests." Captain Lisa Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship, 12 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean. Around her, the most sophisticated technology ever created by human hands hummed with barely contained power. The ship's artificial intelligence systems monitored millions of components ready to bring the massive vessel to life. "All stations report ready, Captain," Chief Engineer Bobby Thompson announced. "Fusion plasma drives at full power. Quantum crystalline armor activated. Weapon systems armed and ready." Captain Chen nodded to her crew. These men and women represented the best humanity had to offer. They had trained for years for this moment, knowing that the future of human independence depended on their performance. In the next few minutes, "Take us up," Captain Chen commanded. The Pacific Ocean began to churn and bubble as something massive moved beneath its surface. What had appeared to be empty ocean suddenly erupted as the USS Leviathan breached like a metallic whale the size of a mountain. Water cascaded from its hull as the ship climbed toward the sky, its drives leaving trails of superheated steam. Fleet Commander Vexthal stared in shock at his tactical displays. The energy signatures coming from the massive human vessel were beyond anything in his experience. The ship was not just large, it was radiating power levels that should have been impossible for any single vessel to contain. The Leviathan continued its climb through Earth's atmosphere, shedding water and gaining speed. At 12 kilometers in length and 3 kilometers in width, it dwarfed the largest collective vessels. Its quantum crystalline armor gleamed in the sunlight like polished diamond, and its weapon systems were clearly visible along its massive hull. "Unknown vessel, you are in violation of collective space," Commander Vexthal transmitted. "Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." Captain Chen's response came back immediately, broadcast on frequencies that cut through the collective's communication systems like they were not there. "This is Captain Chen of the USS Leviathan Earth Defense Force. You are in violation of Earth's territorial space. You have 60 seconds to withdraw from our solar system." The collective fleet had faced many threats over the centuries, but they had never been challenged by a single vessel. Commander Vexthal's tactical computers were struggling to analyze the human ship's capabilities. The power readings were off the charts. The armor configuration was beyond collective understanding. The weapon systems appeared to use principles that no known species had developed. "Impossible," Commander Vexthal muttered. "No single ship can threaten an entire fleet." His answer came from the depths of Earth itself. The Sahara Desert erupted as the USS Behemoth rose from its hidden base, sand pouring from its hull like a waterfall. The ship was slightly smaller than the Leviathan, but equally intimidating, its black armor absorbing sunlight like a void in space. In Antarctica, the ice cap cracked and shattered as the USS Colossus broke through to the surface. Chunks of ice the size of buildings bounced off its armored hull as the ship climbed into the sky. Its weapon systems glowed with energy that made the aurora borealis look pale by comparison. The Himalayan mountains shimmered and disappeared, revealing the USS Sovereign resting in a base that had been hidden beneath holographic projections. The ship's drives fired, lifting it effortlessly into the sky despite its massive size. Additional ships emerged from hidden bases around the globe, each one a testament to human engineering and determination. Commander Vexthal watched in growing horror as his tactical display filled with massive human warships. 12 Titan-class vessels now surrounded his fleet, each one larger and more powerful than anything the collective had ever built. His heavy cruisers, which had seemed so impressive moments before, now looked like escort vessels facing battleships. "This is impossible," Jexnol whispered from the surface facility where the alien delegation was still being held. The military advisor watched through the windows as human ships filled the sky above Earth. "No species develops technology this advanced without the collective knowing about it." Dr. Rodriguez smiled at the alien's confusion. You assumed we were a typical primitive species because that is what your sensors told you. But we have been preparing for this encounter since before your current fleet commander was born. We know your capabilities because we have studied them for decades. You know nothing about ours because we have hidden them perfectly. Admiral Sullivan opened a communication channel that reached every ship in both fleets. Her voice was calm and professional, carrying no hint of the historic nature of the moment. Fleet Commander Vexthal, you now see that Earth is not the defenseless world you believed it to be. We are prepared to defend our independence against any threat. The collective fleet was powerful enough to destroy most civilizations, but they were not prepared for this situation. Their tactics were designed to overwhelm primitive species, not to fight peer-level opponents. They had weapons that could crack planets, but so did the human ships surrounding them. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully, Captain Chen announced. Leave our solar system immediately, and no harm will come to your fleet. Remain, and we will demonstrate why humanity chooses to remain independent. Commander Vexthal looked at his tactical displays one more time. The human fleet was positioned perfectly to destroy his ships if fighting began. His vessels were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing technology that seemed beyond collective understanding. Most importantly, he was far from collective space with no hope of reinforcement. The choice was simple: retreat or face annihilation. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump, Commander Vexthal ordered. His pride as a collective officer burned at having to retreat from primitive humans, but his duty was to preserve his fleet for more important battles. The collective ships turned away from Earth and activated their hyperspace drives. One by one, they disappeared into the void, leaving behind only their diplomatic team and their shattered assumptions about human capabilities. On Earth's surface, Ambassador Kethvar watched through the facility windows as the massive human ships remained in formation above the planet. The display of power was overwhelming, but what truly shocked the ambassador was the realization of how completely he had been deceived. President Carter turned to the stunned alien delegation with a diplomatic smile. Now then, Ambassador, shall we discuss a proper treaty between equals? I believe we have much to offer each other, starting with a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. As news of the encounter spread throughout the collectives, communication networks, species across the galaxy began to reconsider their assumptions about the strange beings from the small blue planet. Earth had not just refused integration, they had proven themselves capable of enforcing that refusal against the collective's military might. The age of humanity underestimating its place in the universe was over. The age of the universe underestimating humanity had just begun. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would the species that called themselves human. From the bridge of the Leviathan, Captain Chen looked out at the stars that had once seemed so distant and hostile. Now they represented not a threat to be feared, but a frontier to be explored by a species that had proven itself worthy of independence among the stars.